Thank you for joining us today. This is part one of our series where we're going to teach you from start to finish how to create a short film. My name is Michaela. I see a few familiar faces here, but if you haven't met me before, I'm the Digital Lounge Coordinator. So from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, you'll find me at that desk outside, helping students with Adobe, WordPress, helping run our workshops and certification courses. A little bit about me and why I'm qualified to teach this is I am actually not a student anymore. I work here, but I was a student in undergrad at USC's School of Cinematic Arts. I was a film and TV production major, so this was sort of what I did in school. So I'm happy to have you here to help you learn the basics of how to create a short film. Luckily, we live in a day and age where really anyone can make a short film. Even if you just have a phone, you have the tools that you need to create something. So hopefully you can take the things that you learn in this workshop today and in the subsequent two workshops and maybe make something of your own if you're interested in doing that. Um, okay. To get started, I just sent an email to all of you, as long as you are on the email list for this workshop that has the materials we're going to be using today. Did you guys get that email? If not, you can scan the QR code and that'll lead you to there. But let me know if you're having trouble getting that. If you need to scan the QR code, I also have some flyers up here. Okay. So today is part one of our series all about pre-production. So pre-production is a crucial part in the process of making any sort of media, whether it be a short film, a feature-length movie, a TV series. Every project that gets made on a semi-professional level goes through a really heavy pre-production process. Now, the length of pre-production really depends on what kind of project you're doing, how complicated it is, how much money and time that you have. Something like a short film that you want to make with your friends, you might only need a day of pre-production. But if you have a budget to raise, and if you have a crew to assemble, and if you have a script to workshop, it may take you days, weeks, months, even years. I know projects that have been in development for years. I'm gonna go ahead and close this. So, we're gonna dive a little deeper into more of what is pre-production. So, pre-production is all about preparing. When you go into a shoot, you want to make sure you've done the most thorough, detailed pre-production work as possible to ensure that the shoot goes as smooth as possible. Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is, when you're shooting something, chances are anything and everything can go wrong. So the more pre-production work that you do, the less of a chance that something is going to go wrong on set. And if something does go wrong on set, thorough pre-production work will make it so that you can move through your problems quickly and efficiently. So there's multiple departments that work on a film. If you're just making a short with your friends, chances are you might not really have set departments. You might just have someone's holding the camera, someone's holding a microphone to record audio, the people are acting. But if you're in a semi-professional or professional film setting, there's going to be many departments that all work together and separately to get their own jobs done in the efforts of bringing one vision to life. So we're going to go through a little bit of what each department would be doing in the pre-production time. And as a director, it is the director's job to guide every department's work towards a cohesive vision. So I like to think of the director of a film as the ringleader. Yes, at the end of the day, their name gets to be like one of the first ones you see on a poster, and they get to champion it as their own. But at the end of the day, a director's job is to make sure that everyone is working towards the same vision. Um, So we're going to be going through this process from the perspective of a director. We just don't have the time or the resources to, go through the entire process of what every department is going to be thinking about and doing during pre-production. So we're going to pretend like we are the directors of a project. And there's no, like I said before, there's no prescribed timeline for how long you should spend in pre-production. It is all dependent on the project you're working on, what resources you have, how complicated the project is. Um, Something that's amazing, but can also potentially be frustrating with working in the film space is every time you make a project, you're going to have new challenges, new things that you learn, new timelines. So it's different every time. Okay, we're just gonna go very briefly into each of the departments and what they're doing during pre-production. So first off, you have the screenwriter. Film always starts with an idea and a script, and that starts with the screenwriter. So during the pre-production phase, if there isn't already a script written, the screenwriter's writing that script. They're then taking notes from the director or the producers or other departments and making revisions. And they'll meet with mostly the director, but sometimes other departments as needed. And then the director. A lot of times, the screenwriter and the director might be the same person, but that's not always the case. Sometimes someone writes a script and then someone else directs it. So if you have a case where you're the director and working with someone who is separately the screenwriter, you're not going to be doing all this stuff. As the director, it is your job to establish the vision for the short film and then to subsequently coordinate with all other departments to ensure that you have a cohesive vision and that everyone's working towards a common. Hi, welcome. Um, and then the production department. So this, on a short film level, this would include the producers, this would include your assistant directors, this would include location managers, UPMs, etc. Um, their job in the pre-production phase is really broad and they do a lot of stuff, but at its bare bones, the production department, mainly the producers, are handling the logistical aspects like budget, paperwork, permits, etc. The director's job is really to lead as a creative visionary. The producer's jobs are to lead from a business and practical standpoint. They're the ones who actually make sure the film gets made and they get the locations, they get the crew, they get the cast, all of that. And they are champions of the project and assist the director to bring it to life, like I said. Also in this department are the assistant directors. We'll talk next week a little bit about how the assistant director is crucial on a short film set in making sure everything goes smoothly. But in the pre-production phase, one of their main tasks is to make the schedule for shooting. So once you have a shot list and locations and a plan for shooting, it's then the assistant director's job in the pre-production phase to make your schedules for each day to decide what order you're going to shoot things in and what time you're going to get there, what time you're leaving, etc. And then we have camera department. So the department head of camera would be the cinematographer or the director of photography. They work with the director on a very creative level. They'll collaborate on a shot list together. They'll coordinate their camera team and secure necessary equipment. That's sort of the basics of what they're doing in pre-production. And then as far as sound goes, it's sound's job to secure necessary equipment. Um, a lot of projects you won't need anything too special for sound, but you might be working on a project that requires rain scenes, and the sound department might need to get special equipment to protect their gear, or maybe they need to get extra lavalier microphones because there's a lot of characters in the film. So sound's job in the pre-production phase is to read the script, see what considerations need to be made, and then plan accordingly to secure the necessary equipment. The art department is led by the production designer. And for the sake of this presentation, art department also lumps in costume designer, hair and makeup, all of that. So the production designer's job at this stage is to discuss the vision with the director, make sure they're on the same page. Then they're off designing sets, coordinating with their art director, which is sort of like their number two, and the rest of the art team, and obtaining set dressing and props to make sure that they have everything that they need for the shooting day. So there's a lot of work that goes into pre-production for the art department. As far as the script and continuity department goes, this is a department of one usually, called the script supervisor. In the pre-production phase, the script supervisor is breaking down the script and discussing important considerations with the director. Their job on set is to make sure that there's no continuity issues, that everything can cut together well. They're like the eyes and ears of the post-production team. And also, they're in charge of taking notes and creating basically an editor's log for the editor. But in the pre-production phase, if they have the opportunity, they'll be breaking down the script to make sure all aspects are included on set that need to be. So that's sort of like an overview, a very brief overview of what any departments might be doing during the pre-production phase for a more professional short film. Any questions so far? Okay. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be approaching discussing and thinking about pre-production from the perspective of the director. And like I said before, that all starts with the script. So I'm first going to show you an example of a script. We're going to break it down in terms of talking about what the different elements are and what the structure of a script looks like. Has anyone here ever read a script? Yes. Okay. So this is going to look a little familiar to you. If you haven't read a script, you might be a little confused by the format, but we're going to get into it. So we're using an example from Back to the Future. That's the movie that we're going to be using a scene from in a lot of our work with this workshop. It's honestly, it's the movie that made me want to go into film. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it. Show of hands, who has seen Back to the Future? Yeah, me too. Um, yeah, no, 3 is not the greatest. Um, so this is an excerpt from the Back to the Future script, and we're just going to use this to sort of talk about what the different aspects of a screenplay are. So every scene starts with what's called a slug line. So that's what you see right here. It'll usually say either interior, int for interior, ext for exterior, or I/E, which means that the scene takes place partially inside, partially outside. Interior for inside, exterior for outside. Typically, you'll see IE if you're in a car, but you also are talking about things that are happening outside the car, that sort of thing. So the slug line will start with this interior, exterior, and then it's going to get into your location. So this isn't the location you're actually shooting in, this is the location within the world of the film. So in this scene, we're in a school hallway. So we have interior school hallway. And usually this one doesn't have it. You can see it over here though. Usually you're going to add a dash and then the time of day. This is just helpful when you're planning out the film because this helps know how to schedule your film, when you're going to shoot things. If something takes place during the day, chances are you're going to want to shoot it in the day. And this is an easy way for people to know when they're preparing in pre-production, okay, we need to be in a school gym and it needs to be daylight. So that's helpful for that. Also, you'll see here the number 6. A lot of times when you're working with a shooting script, the slug lines will have these numbers to indicate what scene you're working on so that it's easy to just like immediately look at, okay, we're working with scene 6 right now. So after that, we have action lines. So these take place throughout the scenes, and unlike a novel, your action lines are going to be pretty sparse when you're working with a film because it's a visual medium. You don't need to give anything more than basic directions of what the people are doing. So you don't get too detailed with action lines. You often leave that up to the director to sort of block the scene, which means placing the characters and their movement between each other. But so this is an example of an action line. Jennifer peeks around the corner down the hall. Pretty simple. And then when we have characters that speak, this is the way it's formatted. It's centered, you have the character name, and then the dialogue goes underneath it. So here we can see a character named Jennifer is talking and a character named Marty replies. Now we have over here what's called a parenthetical. These typically are used pretty sparingly, but it's like if you want to indicate a small action happening during the dialogue or to indicate the mood of the person, you might say in parenthetical, you might have like the word irritated or something to kind of indicate the character's state of mind when reading, when saying their dialogue. But typically you do, this one has a lot actually, but typically it's common practice to do this as sparingly as possible because you want to give the director and the actors opportunity to make their own take with how the lines should be portrayed. And then over here we have transition. So this could be cut to, this could be fade to. At the end of a script, it might be cut to black. These are also sort of optional. You don't necessarily need these to transition from scene to scene, but they are helpful, especially if you have specific transitions in mind. Say, has anyone seen the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey? In the opening, when they have the bone being thrown up into the air and then it matches to a spaceship, in the script, I would imagine it would have the transition being match cut to, which basically means you take a shot of one thing and a shot of another thing, and it kind of looks like they're the same, and it cuts to the thing that looks similar. So it could be useful if you want a very specific transition between scenes. So, with that in mind, I know this might seem like a lot to throw at you right out the gate, but I do kind of want to see, not required, but if you would like to, which I encourage you to, I just want to try a little writing exercise to see if you kind of get the idea of what writing a scene might be like. So if you have just like a blank Google Docs or something, there's screenwriting softwares you can use. We don't need to get super involved in using those. If you're interested and you want to try this, I'd love for you to try to write a short scene between two characters getting into an argument. If you want an extra challenge, you can come up with the circumstances and the characters yourself. But if not, I came up with a little prompt here for you to try. Um, Again, not required, but just if you're interested, want to try to exercise how to write a scene between two people. I added a folder to the folder that I sent to you guys that says script exercise. If you want to upload it there so that everyone can kind of take a look and I can take a look, you're welcome to do that. Is there anyone that does feel like they really want to share, or it's totally okay if you don't? We can, if you put it up in the thing, I can put it on the screen and we can take a look at it. Great. Thank you. All right. So, do I have any volunteers to read for our characters? Any takers? Anyone? Okay. Um, we'll do it together then. Let's do that. Okay. I will be Sarah. And would you also like to read the action lines? Okay.
Interior kitchen, evening. Sink is overflowing with dishes, noise from the TV is ambient. In the living room, Sarah, 16, stands with at the sink, arms crossed. Will, 14, leans on the fridge, scrolling on his phone.
I did them yesterday. Rinsing is not doing dishes. Rinsing is just politely acknowledging their existence.
Mom literally said if you rinse them, it counts.
That's not what she said. She said rinsing is step 1.
Will shrugs, starts to walk out.
Oh no, don't you dare.
Why are you making this a thing?
Because I've been the only one who actually cares if this house doesn't smell like expired milk.
Sarah grabs a wet bowl from the sink and plops it loudly on the counter.
You do them. Or I tell mom you did your homework with TikTok open again. Consequences.
Both sides defeated, most of the same. You're tired.
And yet the sink gets done.
We'll turn. Awesome. Next time I'm recording. Sarah smirks, walks out in front of it.
Awesome. That was great. Yeah, that was amazing. Totally awesome. And you got the slug line, you got action lines, you had it all. So that was really great. Thank you for sharing.
Question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You could die off of notes. Should I be putting things like beat or where it says loudly in caps and at the end of is that a thing or could I have done that better?
Beat is honestly, I think,
Have the job doing, but I just threw this for the attention.
yeah, no, I think it's sometimes it's a bit of a contested thing within the screenwriting world. There are people who do it, there are people who don't, much like a lot of things in screenwriting. I think my personal opinion with using things like using beat is like if you use it sparingly, it's really works to highlight moments where you really want to emphasize the beat. If you're throwing in beat every page, it's going to kind of lose its meaning. And yeah, exactly. And you do kind of want to give the director and the actors that opportunity to choose where they take their pauses. But if it is a really important moment where you want to emphasize that tension and you want to make that very clear as the screenwriter, I say like go for it. And I think that it's a useful thing. But yeah, but definitely less is more because if I've like had scripts that have been riddled with beat, 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 and it's just kind of you realize that there is a sort of control you should relinquish as the screenwriter in some capacities. Like, yeah, you don't want to be directing on the page, is what they call it. So, but I think like a beat here and there isn't a problem at all.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Michaela,
Yeah,
nice to meet you. Okay, so that's a great example. That's available in our folder if you guys want to take a look at that. Has a lot of great formatting and everything like that. But for now, let's move on to a script that we will be working with. So, like I said, we're going to be working largely with a scene from Back to the Future. So I printed out this scene. This is the scene that we're going to be recreating when we shoot next week. I wanted to give everyone physical copies because even though everything is digital now, I think that writing notes on a physical piece of paper is way superior. So take a minute, take a couple minutes, read through the scene, read it twice if you need, just to get a sense of the scene. For those of you who haven't seen Back to the Future, the context of this scene, basically Back to the Future is about a teenage kid named Marty who is friends with a sort of like proclaimed wacky scientist in the community, and he ends up traveling to the past in a time machine that Doc Brown, his scientist friend, created. And when he travels back to the past, he accidentally interferes with his parents' meeting. So this scene is about a conversation between Marty and Doc from the past, talking about how Marty has sort of interfered and what the central problem is that sets up for the rest of the film. So basically, the problem is his mom doesn't know Marty because it's the past and she's kind of into him. And if while you're reading, you have any thoughts, things that come to mind, things you think that would be interesting for when we shoot this, just go ahead and make a little note in the margin. That's what a lot of what directors are doing in the pre-production process. So anything that jumps out to you, any line that you think is really important, you can highlight or underline it, just any notations that you think will help you in portraying your vision for this scene. Okay, now let's read through it out loud. Want to be my scene partner again? Okay, I'll read the action lines for this one. You can be, who do you want to be? Your choice. Okay. You can be Marty, I'll be Brown. So, additional contents text, Marty is the teenage kid who's traveled back in the past. He's from the 80s, that's when this movie came out, and he travels back to the 50s. So Doc Brown lives in the 50s. Marty came from the 80s, now he's in the 50s. Okay. Marty stands in the middle of the hall, completely bewildered. Brown joins him.
You didn't even look at it.
This is more serious than I thought. Apparently, your mother is more amorously infatuated with you instead of your father.
Are you trying to tell me that my mother's got the hots for me?
At the risk of sounding crude, yes.
Jeez, it's pretty heavy.
There's that word again. Heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with Earth's gravitational pull? Brown snaps his fingers. He's got a new thought. The only way those two are going to successfully mate is if they're alone together. So you've got to arrange your father to get your father and mother to interact in some sort of social. Brown can't think of the word. Right.
Well, if you in the 50s.
They're your parents. You must know them. What are their common interests? What do they like to do together? Marty thinks a moment.
Nothing.
Brown notices a hand-painted banner in the hall announcing the Enchantment Under the Sea this Saturday night. Look, there's a rhythmic ceremonial ritual coming up. Marty sees the sign and has a revelation.
Right. And under the sea. They're supposed to go to the dance. That's where they first kissed. I'm sorry. That's where they kissed for the first time.
All right, kid. You stick to your pop like glue and make sure he takes her to that dance. And then that's where we'll stop. Okay, so from reading that scene, is there anything that anyone thought of? Anything that they jotted down? Anything interesting you thought of when you read the scene? Anything at all? It is funny. Yeah, something I wrote down is I think for this scene in particular that the root of the comedy is like two opposing forces, the fact that Marty's from the future, Doc's in the past, the joke about heavy. I noted that as a really important moment, a really funny moment because Marty says heavy as slang in the 80s. People said, "Oh, that's heavy," as to mean and I mean, like, we still use that to this day. I was like, oh, that's deep. Like, that's like major. Like, what the heck? But of course, Brown's from the 50s. He doesn't know what that means. He's a scientist. So the way they both perceive the world leads to these miscommunications and misunderstandings, which I think make it so funny. Um, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The irony of that he's trying to insert himself in some way, time to make sure he even exists because he won't kiss that.
Yeah. Yeah. This scene really sets up the stakes for the rest of the movie. It's laid out right there at the end. When he says the enchantment under the sea, that's where where their first kiss is. So right there and in there, that sets up the stakes for the rest of the movie. If they don't get to that dance, if they don't have their first kiss, Marty doesn't exist anymore. And so this was a major turning point for Marty's character. And these are things that you have to consider as a director when you're directing a scene. Like, you have to hone in on these moments that are crucial turning points for the characters because that could ultimately impact how you want to shoot it. If you really want to emphasize that moment, if we want to get a close up on Marty's face as he realizes, what is about to happen. So these are the sort of things that you're looking at when you're reading a script. You want to get really detailed. You want to talk about who these people are. You want to talk about why they're making these decisions. All that. It might seem crazy, but as a director, you should be reading a script a million times, and each time you should find something new about it, something interesting. Even if it seems like it won't actually impact how you shoot, it's getting to know the script, getting to know the material. You should know it better than anyone else as the director. Anything else anyone picked up on, noticed, or think is interesting or has questions about? Maybe why did this person say this? Anything? Something I'm noting just from a standpoint of us shooting this is there's a prop that we need, and it's this Enchantment Under the Sea dance flyer. So typically, you don't necessarily need to do this as a director, but for our sake, since we're going to be pretty guerrilla filmmaking style doing this, we would want to go through and note the things that we're going to need for next week. So I'm noticing right now that's a big one. So I'm going to note prop, flyer. That's something I'll make sure I have for us next week. We can think about the location. This is all taking place in a school hallway. We have one of those available, so we can think about that. Something you also want to start thinking about is blocking, which is the concept of characters being placed and moving within the space that you're shooting. So I would ideally like you guys to not look up this scene, especially if you haven't seen it, because I don't want that to influence how you think we should shoot it. But something you'd be thinking of from a script level is, how do I want to shoot this? Do I want to play it mostly in a wide shot of the two of them? Do I want one of them to be walking? Do I want them both to be walking? These are things that you have to consider and will ultimately come down to where each character is in their mindsets. Like in this scene, what's going through Marty's head? Like what is his state of being right now? He's frantic. Yeah. And more than that, he's in shock. He is complete, like imagine going back in time and meeting your parents before they even met each other. He is really processing this. So, yeah. So that could impact how he is moving or not moving in the scene. If he's in shock, maybe he is just like standing in place. Or maybe he is really frantic and he's pacing back and forth. Or maybe Doc's pacing back and forth. Should they both be pacing back and forth, or should one be still and one's pacing? Do you know what I mean? Like these are the things we should be starting to think about. Um, so think about that. Keep this in your mind. We're gonna move on to the next part of the creating the vision for the film, but we're gonna circle back to this. So just think in your head, how do you think this would look visually? Who are we focused on? Does our focus shift at some point in the scene? Keep these things in mind because we're going to get into that in a little bit. Anyone have any final thoughts about the scene?
At this point, would you be thinking about angles and lighting, or is that too far?
A little too soon, but we are going to get into angles and shots. In terms of lighting, that typically is a conversation with the cinematographer and the grip and electric department. Like they'll mostly handle like the logistics of the lighting, but that's a creative conversation. Yeah. Well, so what we're going to talk about next is generally tone and mood and that sort of stuff. And then once you establish that as a director, then you can talk to the cinematographer about that, and then they can communicate it to their team in a way where they can execute like the specifics of it. But yeah, I mean, if you have specific ideas in your head, definitely jot them down. Any ideas about anything, you should always just write down. And then that's a conversation you would have with the camera department. Okay, so next up, once you've read the script, once you're getting a feel for it, you really want to hone in on your vision, because ultimately, as the director, your job is to have a clear vision and execute it to the best of your ability. That's pretty much, when you boil it down to it, what the director is doing. So I'm going to show you some examples of how you would communicate this vision. A lot of times, especially in the short film world, um, when you're making a short film, especially if you need to pitch the project to people, if you're looking to raise money and you want to pitch it to potential investors and donors, or you're pitching it to potential crew members who are going to work on the project, chances are you're going to be making a pitch deck. So I'm going to show you an example of a pitch deck that I made for a short film that I just finished. Just to give you an idea of what kind of things you would be doing. So this is a short film that I just finished post on, actually. It's called Rocky Road. And this is the pitch deck that I did for it. Your pitch deck, you want to communicate your overall tone, the message, the visuals. Like you just want at the end of your project for someone to have a good sense of what the project is, what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, what it's similar to, etc. So in order to achieve that vision, I actually did a concept photo shoot where we shot this image along with some others to use in our sort of promotional and pitching materials. So if you can tell from this, it's a stoner comedy because we have weed and we have ice cream. So it's a stoner comedy about ice cream. And you can kind of get that just from this opening image. So yeah, goes into a little bit more. It's a comedy and just a little silly here. The ingredients are marijuana, ice cream, and a whole lot of hijinks. Then you often have a log line. When you have a short film, you want to be able to boil it down to a log line so that if anyone asks you, hey, what's your short film about? You can tell them in 1 sentence, 2 sentences. So this is what my short film was about. An ice cream truck employee with a secret side business must stop his boss from unknowingly serving a batch of his weed-infused ice cream at a kid's birthday party. So it's a very fun, action-packed film. And then I went into talking about what the sort of vision is for each leg of the film. So this is the beginning. We have an opening montage, trying to give you an idea of how we would be shooting it. It's a lot of overheads, ending with some ice cream at a truck. And then the inciting incident. Again, these are just shots that convey maybe the colors, maybe the shot types, maybe just the overall vibe of what that moment feels like. Continues on, they encounter some characters along the way. And then the finale, this is again sort of a mood board, visual style comparison of what that would look like. And the aftermath. So these are all just stills that I found that I felt communicated each part of the film. And then you get into the characters, you would talk about who your characters are, etc. I'm not going to do the whole pitch, but you would often then, a very common way that you can communicate your vision to people is by giving comps or comparisons. So in my case, I decided that I wanted to say that my short film takes the stoner comedy nostalgia of classic stoner comedies like Smiley Face, in combination with the visual style of Scott Pilgrim. Edgar Wright is a huge influence of mine, with the relentless and anxious pace of Whiplash. So that's how, yeah. Yeah, and that's what I at least hope my film does too, is give you a little anxiety. And then you go into talking about the budget, if this is something you're raising money for. You get into, this is something that the producers would be heavily involved with, figuring out the budget and the distributions. And then you would give sort of a timeline, and then you get into the team, but yeah. So that's sort of an example of a pitch deck, how you would use that in the pre-production phase. It's a really important tool to use to get people interested in and excited about your project. You may have noticed I had a lot of stills from different movies and TV shows. And the website that I use to find those is this website called ShotDeck. So unfortunately, this does require a paid subscription. There are other ways you can go about finding stills from movies and TV shows and commercials and music videos, but this is a really awesome tool if you are interested and have the money to spare to use if you are going to be making a lot of pitch decks. It's great because you can do detailed searches to find exactly what you're looking for. So say I'm looking for a wide shot. Oh, they might. Yeah, they might have a free trial. So I I do believe they do. If they do and you're interested and you want to play around with it, recommend. Oh, good to know. Okay, potential student discount. Say you are shooting something that's in a desert and you want a wide shot in a desert. You can look up wide shot desert and all of these options appear. But say you're like, I actually don't want any people in this. I just want an establishing shot of the desert. Well, the great thing is you have this filter results option on the side, and you can get very specific about what you're looking for. So if we talk about number of people, say I don't want anyone else in this. I just want it to be an establishing shot. You can click this none, and it will then only show you pictures of the desert with no people in it. Say I actually want 5 people in it, very specifically. It'll show you examples. So this is a great tool. They have practically every movie, TV show, commercial, music video that you can imagine. And it's great for if you're trying to articulate a sort of tone or vibe, or you know in your head what you want a shot to look like, but you can't think of a specific example. Say I want, I'm looking for a shot that's between 2 people's shoulders looking at something or someone else. I could even try just that search between 2 people. Let's see what that yields. Okay, not quite what we're looking for. Let's change the search to shot type. We can click this over the shoulder. So there's some over the shoulder shots. Let's see if we can change the number of people. So these are some classic over the shoulders, but say we change it to 3 people. Might give us a little bit more of what we're looking for, and bam, there it is. An example. I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted a shot of through 2 people looking at someone else, and just with a few quick keywords, I was able to find it. So this is a great tool if you're able to and interested in using it. It's awesome, and you have so many options and things you can look for. So highly recommend looking into that. And then the last thing I'll show you in terms of like this vision part. Who here has seen Stranger Things? So, you may or may not know when the show was initially when the Duffer Brothers initially had the idea for the show, it was initially called Montauk, actually. And this is the series Bible that they created in order to pitch to people. So if you're working on a higher level, specifically usually with TV, instead of a pitch deck, you might have what's called a Bible, which is a much more in-depth look into the show. But what's amazing about this is it perfectly captures the tone and the look and the aesthetic exactly of what they were looking for. So it goes into the introduction, but they have it in this like Stephen King-esque novel page. It's creepy from the start. They have images that are really creepy. It's not going to show this one for some reason. Oh, come on. Yeah. And it keeps going. It's much more in depth than a pitch deck would be. If you've seen the show, this is what the Hawkins Lab ended up turning into, but this was their initial idea for it. Get into the story. We have seen this. This looks pretty similar to some images they've shown of the Upside Down with like the storm there. And it just really puts you in the world and the feel of the project. So this one's a really popular one that is used a lot. And of course, yeah, we have Stand By Me, fantastic film, classic comparison to use for Stranger Things because whenever they pitched the show, people had a hard time believing that anyone would be interested in watching a group of middle school age children. And so, what do you do as a creator of that show? You say, no, look, here's an example of people caring about that. Stand by Me. Yeah, pretty much. Just and another reason you would do comparisons is to sort of be like, hey, what I'm doing is similar to these things that were successful and worked. And on a larger scale, these are things that made money. So you can trust that might make money too. So yeah, this one's great. If you're interested in like actually reading this and looking into it, highly recommend looking up Stranger Things TV Bible. It's really cool to see how it started from there and then the massive show that it's turned into. Okay, so we'll move on from that. Anybody have any questions about pitch decks, anything like that? Yeah.
Just for betterment, ask, Shop Deck has a 2-week free trial, and they will give you an individual student discount, but you have to contact them with your student.
Oh, great. So if you are interested, 2-week free trial with potential for a student discount if you're interested in looking into Shop Deck. Thank you. Okay. Now, once you've decided the vision, you know what you're ultimately working towards for the vision of your project. A step that's not necessarily necessary, not everyone does it, but is, I think, highly recommended and useful is doing storyboards. Does anyone know what storyboards are? So storyboards are basically it's your film made into a comic is what it looks like. Um, it involves panels that look sort of like this. And you, as the director, or maybe your cinematographer would, or on some projects, you can hire a storyboard artist whose job is to do this. You can basically draw out different shots and moments from your film so people can get a better idea of what it's going to look like. Because if you go straight to a shot list and you say, okay, we're going to start with a wide of these two characters doing this thing, and then we're going to punch into a close up. Some people are way more visual, and it's better for them to see a drawn out version of that. So, a really great example of one in the past is from the movie Psycho. So, these are some boards that I don't know if Alfred Hitchcock himself drew these up or if he had someone draw them up, but these are the storyboards for the infamous shower scene that takes place in the movie Psycho. So, um, these are great because, as you'll see in a moment, the storyboards very closely match up to what they end up shooting and cutting together in the final film. Has anyone seen Psycho? Okay, I'm gonna show this scene from Psycho. Trigger warning is it's violent, but it's also in the 60s, so it's not super graphic, but it is violent. So if that's something you're not into, not super comfortable with, just giving that heads up so you can not look or maybe leave the room for a second. But I want to show this scene because it shows how his storyboards translated to what they shot. Okay, so as you can see with that scene, there was of course some deviations, but there's a couple moments in there that are pretty exactly how it was storyboarded. So, it depends on the kind of filmmaker you are or want to be. Some people don't really storyboard at all. I don't storyboard that much. Some people need to storyboard every single shot because either that's how they work, that's how they like to work, or a scene like this, there's a moment there when the killing is happening. There's a lot of quick cuts, a lot of stuff happening. If you can storyboard that and show visually what you're trying to do, it'll help your team make sense and understand better exactly what it's going to look like. Because sometimes you have an idea and it's very clear to you and it's hard to articulate it. Sometimes visually showing it is the best way to do it. So, with that being said, we're going to do a little practice with storyboards. So I printed out some storyboard sheets. So with that Back to the Future scene, if you have ideas of what you think it should look like visually and you want to practice storyboarding, you don't have to be the best artist. Some of the best filmmakers have storyboarded with stick figures, and that's totally okay. I am not a visual artist myself. It is no problem. So I have a couple extras up front if you want to use more. Again, you don't have to, but I think it's fun. I think it'll help give you a sense of trying to figure out what you would want this Back to the Future scene to look like. Um, so, um, yes, actually, before we do that, so if you have ideas, you start jotting them down, but just to give you, a sense if you're sort of newer to this and you want a little more guidance. We'll get into it a little bit more next week, but I just wanted to give a basic overview of different like shot types and sizes and stuff. So here is an example. We have an extreme long shot, also known as an extreme wide shot. Wide and long are interchangeable. That's like pulled very far back. You can see the whole environment. Long shot or wide shot is a little bit closer, but typically if you have characters in the scene, you can typically see their whole bodies still pretty far back. Medium shot is sort of what we see here. It's like you see sort of above the knee usually, but it's a lot closer on the person, but still not super up close and personal. A close up, as you can see, is pretty close on the person's face. You use these when you want to see the person, you want to tell what someone's thinking, their emotions. If it's an intense scene between people, you might want to get pretty close up. And then extreme close up is if you really want to hone in on how a character is feeling at any given time. So this is good for the eyes are so expressive. So a lot of extreme close-ups are used on eyes to really get a sense of what the character's headspace is in. So when you're doing your storyboards, you might and honestly should probably use a combination of some of these. Typically, you don't want to play a scene completely in one shot. There's a lot of examples where you would, but typically with a conversation scene, you want to have a couple different shot sizes. You might start in a long shot and then go to a close up, back to a medium shot, that sort of thing. So when you're working on your storyboards, I would definitely recommend doing a variety of these things and trying to choose them wisely. If it's a moment where one of the characters is really thinking about something, you want to see their reaction to something, you might want to get close up. If we want to see them both talking to each other, we might want to go a bit wider, a medium or a wide shot. And then beyond that, we have camera angles, which can also be really important in telling the story. So typically, a lot of the times, things are shot at eye level, just straight on with a character or an object. And then we have high and low angles. High angle is going to be from up high looking down on the character. Low angles are going to be from down below looking up at the character. Top angle, otherwise known as a bird's eye view, it's just straight down. Bottom angle, not used super often, but it can be. So I do want to show, oh wait. So
That's the one
that's a low angle, yeah. So I have this video that I found. It goes a little bit deeper into that because there is the psychology behind the angles of your shot. There is what is called the hero shot. And on the reverse, if you have a high angle shot, that can often portray the subject as weak and like a loss of power, things like that. So this video gets a little bit deeper into that. So we're going to take a look at that since we have some time to do so.
Films are made up of sequences. Sequences are made of scenes. And scenes are made up of shots. In the previous episode of this series, we went over how to frame your subjects, to isolate individuals, or create relationships. But as shot size and framing are decided, you'll need to consider camera height. Specifically, the angle of the camera. This is episode 3 of the shot list. Camera angles. If shot size and framing are used to isolate what we are looking at, camera angles are all about how we are meant to perceive them. That adds yet another layer of meaning to every camera shot. We'll be looking at 9 different types of camera angles. As we cover each camera angle and technique, we'll be filling out a shot list using Studio Binder that you can download and reference. Now, let's begin with our first camera angle, the low angle.
Scribe is how you stop explaining the same thing over and over at work. Watch this. It'll change your life.
Any shot that finds itself below a subject's eye line, looking up at them, is a low angle shot. Low angle shots are typically used to make a subject look more powerful, perfect for heroes and villains alike. The degree can be subtle or extreme. Low angles are not confined to human subjects like in 2001, but the effect is the same. Let's look at the scene.
Man, that lousy Mufasa. Man, I hate lions. So pushy and hairy. And man, are they ugly.
Oh, surely we lions are not all that bad.
Oh, Scars, just you.
Consider this low angle shot of Scar. Everything about this shot spells villainy. The color, the smoke, the darkness, the expression. But it is the low angle that brings it all together. For more on the low angle shot, check the description for our video where we break down how to use a low angle in more detail. Up next, a complementary angle often paired with the low angle, the high angle shot. While low angle shots can pump a character up, high angle shots can beat them down.
You will rise from the ashes!
High and low angle shots are often paired in the same scene to heighten the imbalance of power between subjects. High angles are typically used to diminish a character, making them appear weak or vulnerable. An extreme variation of the high angle is the aerial shot, typically used to establish environments, cities, landscapes, or to present characters moving through a larger world.
Starpointer 3 headed northeast.
What, did you stop for drive-through?
For a rather extreme example of a high-angle shot, we look to the Avengers. A powerful hero needs a powerful villain. And what better way to challenge our muscle-bound protagonists than a threat that dwarfs them? In the description, you'll find a link to our high-angle video essay where we break down how to use this towering shot to convey narrative or character details and elicit a viewer's emotional response. When high angles approach 90 degrees above the subject, they become the overhead shot. An overhead shot, also known as a bird's eye view or a God's eye view, finds the camera directly above the subject, shooting straight down. Overhead shots are great for showcasing complex movements, and they could suggest a connection to the divine, or to capture the horrific details of a crime scene. Consider this moment from The Master. Freddy lays above his fellow sailors, most likely drunk and unconscious, but the shot is presented without context. All we see is a character who is disconnected, in more ways than one. And now, an angle that puts us off balance. The Dutch angle. The Dutch angle shot skews the horizontal axis of the frame for an off-kilter image that produces a variety of effects. A Dutch angle can create a sense of unease, mania,
Back, Jim, back. If you don't buy things, toilet paper, new cars, computerized blenders, electrically operated sexual devices, stereo systems with brain...
terror, or bewilderment.
You're worried about me. Why?
A Dutch angle can also be used to magnify tension. In Do the Right Thing, director Spike Lee uses Dutch angles to intensify the vitriol between embittered characters.
Get that jungle music off! We ain't in Africa! We ain't gonna be about jungle music! We ain't gonna be about Africa!
As the racial tensions rise to a boiling point, so does the angle of the tilt. But there are nuances to properly set up a Dutch angle for maximum impact. Check the description to our video essay where we break down Brian De Palma's Dutch angle from this scene in Mission Impossible.
You want to shake hands with the devil, that's fine with me. I just want to make sure that you do it in hell.
Hey, boss. Just arrived on site. Gearing up now.
Time theft. It's costing your business.
Moving on. The eye level shot. Shooting an eye level is perhaps the most commonly used camera height. For the audience, it is the most natural height to regard a character. An eye level shot doesn't impose judgment on a character in the way a high or low angle shot does. But that doesn't mean it can't be engaging or dynamic.
An IPO is an initial public offering. It's the first time a stock is offered for sale to the general population.
In The Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort delivers this monologue straight into the camera at eye level.
Look, I know you're not following what I'm saying anyway, right? That's okay, that doesn't matter. The real question is this: was all this legal? Absolutely f***ing not.
The eye level shot, along with breaking the fourth wall, creates an instant connection to Jordan and his scheme.
Oh!
For more on the fourth wall, check the description for a video essay on how it can be used to create an instant rapport with your characters. Now, our final category, the ground level shot. A ground level shot finds the camera placed all the way down on the ground, or sometimes even slightly below ground. Ground level shots often double as low angles if there is any degree of upward tilt. Shooting from ground level can be a stylish way to track a character's movement through a scene, or to capture details within the setting. The Shining features one of the most iconic ground level shots of all time. The shot is full of dynamic movement, as we track behind Danny's tricycle. The iconic carpet pattern and engrossing sound design keep us intrigued by this lengthy shot. It's haunting, even before we get to room 237. So when you sit down to create your shot list, consider how the camera angle or height affects the messaging. Be creative with your choices, don't just settle for what's expected. And don't worry about remembering all of these camera angles. If you're using our shot listing software, all of these options are built in. Mix and match, try different combinations of shot sizes, framing, and angles. Get creative. You can find a link to Studio Binder in the description. It's free.
Okay, so that was a little long, but it goes more in depth to. I show that just to show that your choices are actually deeper than you might potentially think that they are, and they can convey. Oh yeah, yeah. So this channel, Studio Binder, they're actually a really great resource for all things filmmaking. So they have a lot of great videos on YouTube. This one itself is a part of a series, the Shot List series. So if you're interested, I don't have time to show them all today, but this is a series, so you can watch the other episodes. They talk about shot size, other stuff as well, but they have a lot of great videos as well. And also they have a website where you can find a lot of resources. Like they have you like shot list templates you can use. They have templates for all sorts of like paperwork and things you have to do with film. So there's a lot of great resources there. Yeah. And I think it's always helpful to show these concepts in practice too, so you can see some of the most classic movies, how they're using these concepts and changing their camera angles. And by doing that, it completely changes your perception of who the characters are and what's happening in the scene. So definitely check this out if you're interested. Okay, with all of that in mind, some of you may have already started kind of jotting some things down, but I do want to give a couple minutes for you to work on those storyboards. Any ideas that come up, hopefully that video was a little inspiring in terms of what you can do. So I'm just going to take a couple minutes now, and you can go ahead and work on those storyboards.
This takes place in the hallway, right?
Mhm. And then after this, just so you're thinking ahead, our final step will be a shot list. So if you do pretty detailed storyboards, you should be able to just transfer that information into shot list form. So the more detailed you are with your storyboards, the better it's going to help you when we create this shot list. Okay, while we still have a little bit of time, I want to briefly go over shot listing. So hopefully you've had some time to work on that. The final component that we're going to talk about is the shot list. I already went over these. This is sort of an example of what a shot list looks like. Shot lists, depending on who you are, they can be different. Everyone likes their own sort of setup, but this is an example of what one might look like. You would get into like the scene, the shot number. Some of this info changes depending on what you're doing, but here under shot, WS stands for wide shot, MCU, medium close up. If we go back to this thing, everything's abbreviated, especially on a shot list. So typically they say wide shot over long shot. So it would be EWS for extreme wide shot, WS for wide shot, MS for medium shot, CU for close up, and ECU for extreme close up. Those are like the most common ones that you would be using. So if we go here, you would see this is a wide shot. This is, I think, very wide shot, medium close up, medium shots, etc. And it even has this camera angle, what we just talked about. So eye level, high angle, bird's eye view over here. You can even indicate whether it's an OTS, which stands for over the shoulder. And if there's any camera move, a lot of camera shots are going to be static. They're just on a tripod, but you might be handheld. You might be panning the camera. You would indicate that there. I'll show you also a brief example from my short film. This was our shot list that we used. To give you an idea, the end product ended up being, with credits, 10.5 minutes. This is how big our shot list was. So it's 10 scenes, 3 days, which, yeah. Ideally, we would have been able to do 4 days, but we didn't. It was 3 days and 5 or 6 locations. So it was pretty hectic. And you can even see an example. My DP, director of photography, drew up these storyboards. We had an opening montage that was very clear in my mind. And in order to make it clear in his mind and everyone else's minds, he helped come up with these storyboards so that we could track it visually and so that it made sense to everyone. So that's just an example, practically, what I've used in my day-to-day work in film. And it has, you can see some stuff is the same here, some stuff is different. It really just depends. As long as your DP and the other key people on set are able to read it and understand it, there is no set formula you need for it. So with that being said, last thing that I'll have you take a stab at is working on a shot list for this. So in the folder, I put in this shot list template. So if you want to take some of the ideas that you fleshed out in your storyboards, and you can start to create a shot list for how you would shoot this scene. So that's our last thing that we're going to do today. So for the rest of the time, I'm just going to give you this time if you want to work on it, ask any more questions. But other than that, that is the extent of my presentation. And when you're working on a movie and you're in pre-production or in development and you're trying to get it made, you might end up getting what's called the green light. So because you completed this workshop, you now have the green light to go ahead and make this movie, which we will do next week.